Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week, as you can see, I'm doing some watercolor landscape painting, some loose abstract watercolor landscape painting. The materials that I'm using are pretty much the materials I always use. There's Sennelier watercolor paint, just the two colors, a blue and a yellow. Obviously I'm using some water, just the one brush, and then the paper. This paper is a cold press paper, so it has a rough surface. When it comes to watercolor, the paper, the surface texture of the paper is important. Maybe even one of the most important decisions that you make. Watercolor is one of those media that is quite fussy about the surface that you use. It's not that one paper is necessarily better than another paper, it's just they're going to give you different kinds of results. Maybe you can see on screen the sort of horizon line that I've put in, that sort of blue streak of paint across the center of the paper. On the right hand side you can see little speckles of white, and obviously that's not white paint, that's just the paper showing through. What happens is, with a rough paper, if you put the watercolor onto dry rough paper, some of the paint will go into the little dimples and things, some of the bumps and things will stay white, not all of the dimples will be filled up with pigment. Basically you're not going to get an even coverage of paint, you're going to get this sort of speckled effect. With certain styles of painting, this sort of abstract loose style that I have, it adds in my opinion, some interest, some aesthetic value. But if you were doing a very sort of photorealist, very detailed style of painting, you're probably going to find this sort of effect to be quite irritating, possibly. You want more of a flat surface, possibly, because the flat surface, it's easier to control where the paint goes. The rough surface, there's always a bit of chaos in there. So it's not, as I say, that one paper is necessarily, in general, better than another paper. It's just the different surface textures are more suited to certain styles of painting. And you know, if you're going to choose watercolor as a medium to work with, that's the kind of thing that you need to figure out for yourself. You need to learn about those things. It's part of the learning process. The same with different brands of paper are different. These terms like hot press, cold press, rough, smooth, they're not scientific terms. One company's rough paper is not necessarily the same as another company's rough paper, and so on. So you have to play around, you have to experiment. I think when you're getting started with watercolor, perhaps two things. One is experimenting, keeping an open mind and experimenting with things. And then the other is being pragmatic. You may never find the perfect paper or the perfect paint. You have to sort of work with what you've got. I remember seeing a YouTube video of this guy, and he was very much into the drawing style of Georges Seurat. Seurat was 19th century neo-impressionist painter. He did a lot of the pointillist style of painting, little dots of color, but he also had a very unique way of drawing, or quite unique. Rather than using lines and values and shading, he used just values to create different shapes. And he also used a very specific paper to get, the paper had quite a rough surface, and it gave him a very specific kind of trademark look to his drawings. So this guy, anyway, he wanted to go off and get this exact same paper, discovered that the company that made the paper had gone out of business, I don't know, 100 years ago. So the whole video then is him trying to find a specific paper that mimicked the paper that Seurat used. the point I'm trying to make here is sometimes being pragmatic is a good thing. Maybe you can't find the perfect paper, but you can find paper that will work for most of the things that you want to do. So I think that would be two things: experiment, keep an open mind, and be pragmatic. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.